Welcome to the PreSnap Podcast presented by LineStar. Alongside my co-host Tyler Wiemann, I'm Shannon Sommerville, and we have a look at the NFC West today. We're continuing on with our division previews as we get closer to kickoff for the NFL season. It's right around the corner, and we're breaking it all down with some of our best bets, some fantasy outlooks, and a look at some win totals and some futures bets as well. So the NFC West, things look like it's the 49ers division for the taking, but there are some interesting teams to kind of keep an eye on here, especially for fantasy purposes, Tyler. I mean, 49ers have a lot of fantasy studs, but actually, you know, the Seattle Seahawks, this time last year we were talking about how bad the Seattle Seahawks were going to be, and boy, did they prove us wrong with Geno Smith. I mean, that was one of my worst takes last year.
They sure did.
Season. So I will not make the same mistake twice. Although we will get into the Seahawks, and I will explain. I still have a little reservations about them, but we'll get into it. But let's first start things off with the team that has the fifth best odds to win the Super Bowl behind the Chiefs, Eagles, Bills, Bengals. That's the 49ers. Last season, 13-4. And then they have the second best odds behind the Eagles to win the NFC. Tyler, it kind of feels like anything less than a Super Bowl berth is kind of a bust for this team that's absolutely stacked once again, even though we're kind of unsure of the quarterback situation, which is a crazy thing to say about a team.
Yeah, I mean, they arguably have the best complete roster in the NFL. The one issue is that they don't have Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, or Joe Burrow, the four teams that are ahead of them in playoff odds.
Who needs them when you got Kyle Shanahan calling the shots back there? But let's get into some of the offseason moves that they did make or maybe didn't make. So Jimmy Garoppolo moves over to Las Vegas. So they brought in Sam Darnold. So an interesting quarterback room now with Trey Lance, Brock Purdy, Sam Darnold there. They signed Javon Hargrave from Philadelphia to shore up a little bit of the defense. They did lose a lot of defenders. However, when you're looking at the 49ers as an organization, they're absolutely a team that can just take kind of people off the streets and turn them into stars, as we've seen time and time again with them. In fact, I think it's kind of a hot spot for a lot of agents to send some of their players that they think need to be have a career rejuvenation. It's like, send them to San Francisco. They will have a career resurgence. That's kind of the MO of that defense, and it will look differently, especially with a new defensive coordinator, as D'Amico Ryans is now the head coach of the Houston Texans. What stands out to you about this 49ers team as you take a look at their outlook for 2023?
Yeah, I mean, they're a very good team. I think that for a long time, they've been an elite rushing team, and they should do that once again. As far as a team, I think there are, still major questions at, Brock Purdy coming off injury. Is he going to be the guy we saw at the back end of the season, or is his injury going to play a role? So I think that's the major question we have with this team. After that, they're stacked everywhere.
It's so interesting that from just a fan perspective, to see what happens at the quarterback situation and if Brock Purdy is good to go, but a part of me kind of wants to see Sam Darnold in this offense and how that looks. But I mean,
see what Kyle Shanahan can do with him. Quarterback
exactly. That's you just never know how that would work. But this is a high-powered offense, and when you have guys like Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel back there, it's a very high-powered offense. What are your expectations for Christian McCaffrey? He's been going pretty high in a lot of drafts. In fact, I wouldn't, I was even thinking today, I'm like, do I like him more than I like Justin Jefferson? I don't know.
I mean, it's totally a conversation I think that should be had. And I know he's going third in, ADP on Underdog, but I really think he probably should be going second ahead of Jamar Chase. It's just that, people are valuing wide receivers so high on Underdog. It's the only reason that he is going third. But I mean, CMC is in the best situation he's ever been by far. He crushed in the 10 games he started with them last year, and you got to expect the same coming this year.
Deebo Samuel was another fantasy stud we saw 2 years ago. Last season took a bit of a dip in terms of some of those stats for fantasy football. What do you expect from him this coming season? He claims he's going to be back and better than ever. What are realistic?
The reports coming out of camp is that he is in extremely good shape. And last year he came into camp a little out of shape. So everything in camp is saying that he is back, but we'll see if he is. With that, there's also people saying that Brandon Ayuk is now the WR1 there. So, there's a lot to really consider when you're talking about Deebo, but I mean, he can do so much with the ball in his hands that you gotta like his outlook. His upside is unreal. It's just, I don't know if that upside is truly obtainable with CMC there, just because CMC is going to take so much of what really made Deebo pop.
Right. Absolutely. Good point there. So speaking of CMC, I know both you and I really like him for Underdog season-long picks. What's your season-long pick for the 49ers?
CMC higher than 2.5 rushing, 100-yard rushing games. He had 3 with the 49ers last year in the 10 games he started. Open that up to a full season, he should easily be higher. The 49ers are just absolutely an elite rushing team. CMC is going to see plenty of open field, and we know what he can do once he sees that open field. So I think 2.5 rushing yards is just way too low for him. Yes, I do foresee the 49ers, kind of benching him when they get way ahead and blow out games, but I think there's going to be enough close games that 100 yards is not an issue.
I like where your head's at with CMC, so I'm going to also stick with that and go over on his receiving yards. Right now, the line is 599.5. I think he's going to get over 600 for sure. He's been over this each of the times that he's had at least 10 games under his belt in a season, and then 464 in 11 games with San Francisco last year, so that averages out to about 42 receiving yards per game. You say he plays 15 games, he should easily hit the over in this one, and especially in an offense where Kyle Shanahan knows exactly how to use some of these guys that have such a vast skill set, like Christian McCaffrey, who's so great and dynamic in the pass catching game and basically can be a wide receiver for you as well. So I definitely think the over is the place to find some value here for CMC. Of course, anytime we talk about these futures bets, like injury is always going to be kind of a thing. But given the fact that he looked pretty good last year, yes, he got a little bit beat up towards the end of the season, but I mean, he looked incredible last year, and I know that he helped out a lot of fantasy teams. I'm taking the over on receiving yards for sure. Christian McCaffrey's one of my top bets for next season. And that offense, man, it's pretty incredible.
Absolutely. And he's going to be way more efficient in this offense. He doesn't need as many touches as he had with Carolina to put more stats on the board. So I like all the CMC overs.
Overall, 49ers outlook, their win total is at 10.5. What are your expectations for them in terms of that?
I mean, there's big question marks with quarterback right now. They're saying Brock Purdy is healthy, and if that's the case, I think over 10.5 is fine. Even if they had to go to Trey Lance or Sam Darnold, I think there's a very good likelihood they're winning more than 11 games just based on how good their roster is from top to bottom.
All right, the team with the next best odds to win the NFC West is the Seattle Seahawks, who Tyler and I both kind of wrote off last season, and in fact, they proved us wrong in Geno Smith. I was a bitter Jets. I'll take the blame for that because I was a bitter Jets fan who, he didn't play well for the Jets, so I was like, no shot. And sure enough, he had an incredible season, led the league in completion percentage, and I think also big play percentage, was just not afraid to chuck the ball down the field, which for fantasy purposes is kind of fun, especially for some of those wide receivers on the Seattle Seahawks, which we will get into. So right now, the offseason moves for the Seattle Seahawks. They signed Geno Smith because of that stellar performance to a 3-year deal for $75 million. They also signed linebacker Bobby Wagner, and they signed center Evan Brown. And so basically they made a lot of moves this offseason and probably makes sense considering the NFC West, aside from the 49ers, is kind of like, I don't want to say like wide open because you still got San Francisco to contend with, but it's a good time to be all in. They also got defensive tackle Draymond Jones, and then in the draft they got a cornerback in Devin Witherspoon from Illinois in the first round. So they got 2 first-rounders, and of course wide receiver Jackson Smith and Jigba from Ohio State, who I'm sure we will be talking about in just a moment. Edge rusher from Auburn, Derek Hall, in the second round, and they drafted a running back in Zach Charbonnet from UCLA in the second round. So they got a lot of young talent on that Seattle Seahawks team this year. Certainly the future is looking bright for the Seattle Seahawks. They knew what they were doing when they traded away Russell Wilson, and they continue to be a team that is building but has a lot of fun pieces there. What is your assessment of the Seahawks for 2023?
Apparently coaching matters because they were able to make Geno Smith something, and he really was something. He was really great last year. They just got better, too. They got better on, I think, both sides of the ball. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett now have JSN also there to contend with. So maybe targets are a little more spread out than we have seen in the past for this team. But I think as a whole, you got to really like this team. And also with the 3 very good receivers, maybe there's a little more running room for those running backs.
Yeah, absolutely. We got Kenneth Walker back there. Zach Charbonnet is an interesting prospect as well, so certainly something to keep an eye on. A lot of fantasy pieces there. With that wide receivers room, how do you view the, I guess, target share between the 3 you've got there? You got Metcalf, Lockett, and now JSN.
Yeah, I think Metcalf is the clear-cut number 1 as far as probably going to get the most amount of target share. However, Lockett was right there with him last year. And so I don't think it's like a total Metcalf 100% is the number 1. Now, I think he is going to get probably the most touchdown receptions. I think that, it makes sense for him to go the first out of these 3 in drafts. But people need to stop sleeping on Tyler Lockett. It seems like Tyler Lockett is, being pushed to being the 3rd guy, and he is a very good wide receiver. Had more fantasy points than Metcalf last year. He could absolutely do that again.
I didn't even realize that, Tyler. That's pretty incredible. He had more fantasy points than Metcalf. That's crazy. And then I'm sure he's going. They
were neck and neck. I mean,
yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. But something to consider if you guys are playing fantasy football from a Underdog season-long prop perspective. What are we looking at?
I like the whole offense, so I'm really trying to get little pieces of all of them. I do think Metcalf is going a little bit high, so I don't have very much of him, but I do have a lot of Lockett, a little bit of JSN. I want to get more Walker and more Charbonnet. And then Geno is going way too low for how good he did last season and just getting more weapons for this year.
Yeah, absolutely. For my prop bet, I really like Geno Smith's over on passing yards in this one. 38.50.5 last season. He had 4,282. They added to their offensive line, which was kind of a struggle last season. The thing is, Geno needs time to be able to check the ball down the field to guys like JSN and all his new receivers, who, by the way, will also add to his value next year and help him hit this over. So I really like this spot for Geno Smith. I think if he continues to produce like he did last season, the most confidence I have is in Pete Carroll and his ability to get the most out of his players like Geno Smith, as we saw last season. Towards the end of last season, we did see more defenses start to adjust to Geno Smith, but I think that given the offseason, I think they're going to start to work with him. This is his 2nd season in this offense, so I think he's only going to get better. And so I like the over on Geno Smith here. I'm not entirely bought into the Seahawks team as a whole quite yet. I think it's a fun team to watch. I think they've definitely got a lot of pretty dynamic pieces, and Pete Carroll will always just be able to get the most out of his talent and the guys on his team. However, one thing that concerns me when you're talking about that defense, I mean, when you're going up against the San Francisco 49ers and you've got the Seattle Seahawks run defense that just, it was an absolute track meet. So that's my only concern with the Seattle Seahawks in terms of contending and like bigger picture, not just those props, but I still like some of the value that you can get in fantasy and in the prop market in terms of the overs on some of the receivers. Geno Smith, I'm liking that there. What is your overall impression of what the Seahawks, what would success mean for them in 2023?
I mean, beating their win total, having a chance at the NFC West title, I think is definitely probably a success for them. I don't see them winning the Super Bowl. They could make the playoffs, but, you know, we'll have to see on that.
And their win total right now is 8.5. You think they get there?
I think they can get there.
All right. How about the Los Angeles Rams, who, man, they had a rough season last year, finished 5-12. They started 3-3. They had really tough schedule out of the gate. And then they lost 6 straight after their bye week. They lost Matt Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and Aaron Donald, their best players, to season-ending injuries. No team in the NFL was hit harder than injuries last season. The Los Angeles Rams were decimated by injuries, and it showed in that final record. Now this season, they're coming back. They've got those guys healthy. However, they didn't make many moves in the offseason, and you've got those veteran leaders, but you've also got a lot of young talent and inexperienced team there. So notable offseason moves is mostly in the draft. Second round, they drafted TCU guard Steve Avila. In round 3, edge defender Byron Young from Tennessee. They also drafted Kobe Turner from Wake Forest, a D lineman. And hey, Stetson Bennett from Georgia, the quarterback who took the Dogs to back-to-back national championships, is now with the Rams, backing up also former Bulldog Matt Stafford. Like to see that. And then in their secondary, they did trade away Jalen Ramsey. So not too many huge moves for them. They didn't do a whole lot. What is your impression of the Los Angeles Rams as we get ready for the start of the season?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting spot here. Everybody has kind of jumped off their bandwagon, but outside of, you know, all their injuries last year, they're really not that much different than they were when they went to the Super Bowl. Yes, they don't have Robert Woods, but Van Jefferson's good. Tyler Higbee is good. I think they have enough pass catchers, and, you know, Stafford is a very good quarterback. You know, they also traded away Jalen Ramsey, so maybe their D isn't quite as good, but I think everybody's gone too far against the Rams. I think they could beat their 6.5 win total.
Yeah, absolutely. Sean McVay is a great coach, and all reports coming out of there are that he's kind of established a recommitment to coaching himself and just getting excited about developing young talent. So I'm excited to see what the Rams put together this season, given the fact that maybe they don't have the talent that they did a few years ago and they haven't got the pieces there. But like you said, they do have some pretty big stars. Matt Stafford, Cooper Kupp will always be one of the best connections in football. And then you got Aaron Donald back there, one of the best defenders in the game. So they will always be in it seems like, right?
Yeah, and Cam Akers came on real strong at the end of last year, which, you know, at that point, he's a year and a half removed from his Achilles injury. And so I think that a healthy Akers is a real big plus to this team.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because for my Underdog season-long prop, I am loving the over on Cam Akers rushing yards. He had 786 last year. The line right now is just at 750.5 rushing yards. Like you mentioned, Tyler, torn Achilles cost him all of 2021. Last season was just weird. They opened the season, he carried the ball like 3 times in the season opener, then kind of had a falling out with Sean McVay. Week 5 was demanding a trade, but then it seems like they sorted things out, and towards the end of the season, they just kind of got it figured out. Now he's fully healthy, minimal competition back there, and put up over 100 yards the last 3 games of last season. The final 6 games, he was averaging 85 rushing yards per game. I like Cam Akers this season. It wasn't too long ago that everyone was in on him as a top 10 running back. So I like Cam Akers. I think he's going to have an excellent season and could see over 1,000 here. What is your impression of Akers?
I totally agree with you. I think it's Akers' role. I really like him. I think it's a very interesting spot for best ball because he's going late enough where if he has the role that he had at the end of the season, he's an absolute smash value. However, there is some variance there. We don't know, if that is fully his role, but I think it probably is, and he's probably a very good pick in best ball.
And the other point is he hit the over last season, and that offensive line was atrocious and absolutely decimated by injuries. No offensive line had more injuries than the Rams last season. And so you're now talking about a healthy line. They put some reinforcements in there. So I like the spot, especially for Cam Akers. Anything you like for Underdog season-long fantasy?
Yeah, I like Matt Stafford higher than 22.5 passing touchdowns. I think this line is just way too low. 2021, he had 41 touchdowns. Last season, he had like 20 and missed a big portion of that season. He has Cooper Kupp back. He's got Van Jefferson. He has Tyler Higbee. He has good options to throw the ball to. So barring health, which since he's in training camp and he's playing, I have to assume he's a full go. And in that case, I think he smashes 22.5.
Oh, there you go. Go Dogs. Remember, you can find all of these bets on Underdog Fantasy. And if you don't have Underdog Fantasy, make sure to download it. And when you do, you can use the promo code LineStar and you'll get up to $100 of your deposit match. So make sure to check that out there. Moving on to, lastly, the Arizona Cardinals. Last year, just 4-13, abysmal season. Say goodbye to Cliff Kingsbury. Notable off-season moves here. I feel like they kind of just are throwing in the towel for this season, it seems like, given the fact that Kyler Murray, their star quarterback, is out with an torn ACL, rehabbing from that. They let D lineman Zach Allen and cornerback Byron Murphy walk in free agency. They did sign linebacker Kazir White from Philly. And then in the draft, some interesting pieces. First round, they 6 overall drafted tackle Paris Johnson Jr. from Ohio State. Then drafted linebacker defensive end BJ Ojulari from LSU. In round 3, quarterback Garrett Williams from Syracuse. Wide receiver Michael Wilson from Stanford. But this Cardinals team, I don't know if they're going to be able to do much considering they don't have a quarterback. It's a completely kind of new team, no longer the Cliff Kingsbury era. What do you make of the Cardinals and their prospects for 2023?
Yeah, I mean, they are essentially the Seahawks of last year where everybody's writing them off, right? And I think it's with good reason. However, at least Kingsbury's gone. But the big question mark here is Kyler Murray. Is he going to be healthy? When is he going to come back? And that's kind of the unknown here. I think if you told me that, he's going to be back week 2, I think they go over 4.5 wins. If he's back week 8, it might be a little bit harder for him. But I think that's the big question mark here. Another thing is I think that Michael Wilson, the 3rd-round wide receiver, is actually a little bit interesting to be drafting, and you can take him pretty much with your last pick.
Ah, that's a fun one. I mean, I just don't know what to make of the Cardinals in general right now. And so I'm kind of staying away in terms of props and stuff, but it's interesting. You're always looking for late round, like especially in best ball, like late round flyers to just take a shot at. And that's a really interesting one there. Why do you have confidence in him?
So their wide receiver room is all short guys, Rondale Moore, Marquise Brown, why can't I think of the other guy that's short that they have right now? But they're all like under 5'8". And, Wilson is a big body target. He was a highly touted prospect, but got hurt last year. So he dropped in the draft a little bit, was still taken 3rd. in the third round. And, being a bigger body guy, I think there's a chance that he could be a little bit of their red zone threat. And if that's the case and you're getting him in the, end of the draft, it's a little bit interesting, especially if Kyler comes back a little sooner than expected. Everybody's pretty much just quitting on this team and trying to avoid them for the most part. Yeah. And there could be some value there with the passing game.
Jonathan Gannon now, obviously, I don't think I even mentioned who took over as head coach. I was talking about Cliff Kingsbury there as well. But one interesting dilemma with the Kyler Murray is when he does come back, coming off ACL, as we've talked to Dr. Chow several times, like after coming off ACL, like you're just not the same player usually that you were. So that will be interesting to see how they kind of treat him and if they hold him back a little bit, or do they want to see what they really have with Kyler Murray? I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see kind of how it all shakes out there in the desert. But I'm not super confident.
There's a lot of ways to go.
Not super confident in the pieces that they have right now. I think they'll get there. Jonathan Gannon, we saw what he did with the Philadelphia Eagles and their defense. So the defense might be something to watch too. All right. So win total at 4.5. Do you think they can get there?
I mean, this is another one. There's no way I would bet it.
Yeah.
But I think they can. I think that the market is undervaluing them so much that there's a chance they go over here.
Still a chance. All right. Who do you have winning the NFC West?
Niners.
Yeah. Bang, bang, Niner gang. That's who I have as well.
Yeah.
All they have to do is run the ball. CMC. Like, that's a machine. That is a machine. It's a Death Star is fully operational. It's very, regardless of who's playing quarterback, I don't care. It'll be interesting I'm excited for San Francisco going up against Seattle. I think that'll be fun to watch. I think that Seattle is going to be improved from last season, and Pete Carroll has done well against Shanahan in the past. So that'll be an interesting one to watch.
Yeah. Carroll always has a trick up his sleeve. Yeah. So I think that matchup definitely is going to be fun to watch, but the 49ers are the class of the division without a doubt.
All right. So some fun props and everything for you. Good luck in all of your prop betting endeavors. Remember, you can lock some of these in on Underdog Fantasy. If you don't have it already, make sure to download it. Use the promo code LineStar and you'll get up to $100 if your deposit match. And as you get set for football season, if you play daily fantasy, if you do prop betting, you got to check out the LineStar app, linestarapp.com. Our props AI tool has been helping us out tremendously. If you watch our MLB daily prop shows, we've been crushing it. So you definitely want to check out that tool for the season coming up. So linestarapp.com. Right now we have free 3-day trials. If you want to just check it out, make sure to do so. linestarapp.com. And if you're watching us and you're enjoying our content, do us a huge favor. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and comment below. We want to hear from you. What do you think of the NFC West and who's going to come out victorious? Let us know in the comments. Good luck in all of your prop betting endeavors. Football season is coming, fast approaching. We've got one more preview to do, so make sure you sign up for those notifications so you know when we come out with content. We'll see you guys next time.